or 0.5 miles northeast of the property. The property is located on Trimble Avenue, which is a local street. The closest nearby collectors and thoroughfares identified in the Town of Cary Community Plan are West Chatham Street to the north and Southwest Maynard Street to the north. There are transit routes located along Southwest Maynard Road and a future route proposed along Old Apex Road. So the conditions that I shared with you just a few slides ago have evolved and changed over the last few months. So I'd like to take a moment to review the evolution of the application. The application for this site was first submitted in July of 2016. This was before the Cary Community Plan was adopted. Their zoning request at that time was for residential multifamily conditional use. They also submitted a comprehensive plan amendment. They had a condition to limit the use to 23 townhomes or patio dwellings. The applicant put the case on hold until the adoption of the Cary Community Plan, so that the application stayed on hold until the Cary Community Plan was adopted in January and then went to public hearing in February. So in January, the applicant changed the request to transitional residential conditional use. They no longer needed a comprehensive plan amendment, so that aspect of the application went away. They changed the zoning conditions to limit the use to a maximum of 15 detached dwellings or townhomes, further specifying no townhomes would be adjacent to Trimble Avenue, and adding architectural standards and a 6-foot fence along the rear of the property. The application has further changed, so what you're seeing tonight is still a request to rezone to TRCU, so Transitional Residential Conditional Use, with conditions limiting the use to 9 detached dwellings, so there'll be no townhome component with what's being proposed now. Proposing to increase the minimum lot size over what's allowed in the TR zoning district, increase the front yard setback or roadway setback, adding architectural standards, and specifying minimum parking widths in the driveways, and adding storage facilities for each unit. So before the public hearing, there were 2 neighborhood meetings that were held. First was a required neighborhood meeting. The town's ordinances require that all rezoning cases go through a neighborhood meeting. The required neighborhood meeting for this case was December 7th, 2016. There were approximately 115 attendees and numerous concerns shared at that time. The applicant held an additional neighborhood meeting at Bethel Baptist Church on January 12th, 2017. The concerns that were noted at both of these neighborhood meetings included concerns about the rezoning application and process. There were numerous concerns about flooding and stormwater. There was a potential road connection to Palmetto Drive. That has since gone away. I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. There's numerous concerns about traffic and speed on Trimble Avenue. People have noted there was an existing traffic issue on Trimble Avenue. Concern about the housing type that was being proposed at that time, which was townhomes. Concerns about density and buffers. Also concerns about the potential developer and CDBG support from the town. So at the public hearing, the applicant noted right at the beginning of the public hearing that they intended to offer new conditions, which is the conditions you all are seeing tonight. Citizen feedback included comments regarding the intended purchaser of the site, flooding and stormwater. There was some support expressed for the new proposal of single-family homes. There was still concerns about traffic. The council feedback included first reminding the people in the audience and then themselves as well that this case was regarding land use and they could not take into consideration the price point for which the houses would be sold or the intended purchaser for the site, which would be Habitat for Humanity. They were also interested in learning about the difference between the R8 zoning district and what was being proposed with a TRCU zoning district. So to talk a little bit more about what's being proposed compared to the R8 zoning district, There is included in your staff report and on this slide here a picture depicting minimum dimensional standards and minimum lot areas for each of these zoning districts. So I'll take a few minutes just to walk us through that. So with the R8 zoning district, each lot has to have a minimum of 8,000 square feet, 60-foot minimum lot width, 20-foot roadway setback, and with the TRCU zoning district that the applicant's proposing, they're proposing to increase the minimum lot size so that at least 6 of the lots will have a minimum lot size of 8,000 square feet. So the lot size minimum would be the same as R8. They would be able to, by proposing the TR zoning district, use a lesser minimum lot width. 40 feet is required as the minimum lot width in the TR zoning district, as you can see here. They are proposing an increased roadway setback of 30 feet, and that's indicated here with this red dotted line. The applicants also propose that the remaining, so at least 6 lots will have 8,000 square feet, and then the remaining lots will have a minimum of 7,000 square feet. So again, given that this is TR, they would have to have that minimum lot size that they're proposing, but also meet the dimensional standards of the TR zoning district, which again is 40 feet. For the minimum lot width, they would have to meet an increased front yard setback. They're proposing that 30-foot roadway setback. So moving forward into the last part of the presentation, I want to take just a few minutes to address some of the numerous citizen concerns that we've heard regarding this case, as well as go into our evaluation of this case under the Cary Community Plan. So with this rezoning case, we've heard concerns from citizens regarding a number of issues, specifically regarding the Community Development Block Grant. So to give a little bit of feedback on this, the town of Cary is a Community Development Block Grant entitlement community, which means that the town receives funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The town can use this CDBG funding for a variety of projects to include economic development, social services, public utilities, and affordable housing. Each year after the opportunity for public comment, the town adopts an annual action plan. The fiscal year 2017 plan commits funding in principle to Habitat for Humanity, which is the intended purchaser for this site. The town chose the Habitat project through a competitive process. The funding, however, is contingent upon the site being rezoned. If the rezoning is not approved, the town has the option to transfer the funds to another project. I should also note that the CDBG funding process and the rezoning are processes that run in parallel with each other. Funding for new affordable housing is actually just one component of the CDBG plan. In the fiscal year 2017 plan, it represents 19% of the funding proposals, which is highlighted in this chart in orange. Moving on, another concern we've heard regarding from nearby property owners is regarding drainage and flooding, specifically in this area along Trimble Avenue. The town has received a petition for stormwater improvements in this area, and as you can see from this map, the GIS map shows no stream buffers on the subject property, which is highlighted here in purple. But the properties in close proximity do have stream buffers. Further, if rezoned, the site would be developed. The site which would be developed would have to provide stormwater management, which includes mitigation for the 1, 2, 5, and 10-year storm events, along with requirements per the town's land development ordinance and the Swift Creek land management plan. The Town of Cary Water Resources Department Stormwater Engineering Manager Billy Lee is available to share more information on drainage and flooding concerns in this area should the board have questions tonight on this topic. We've also received a number of concerns regarding the potential for a road connection to Palmetto Drive. You can see Palmetto Drive, which was platted in 1969 as part of the Savon Heights neighborhood, is stubbed just to the northeast of the site. After further researching this requirement, staff noted that the deed, which conveyed the land to the town, this land here just to the north of the site, conveyed the property in fee simple and did not dedicate the property as right-of-way. So this property just to the north is not actually right-of-way. So because the town owns this property as in fee simple and has never been designated as right-of-way, any future developer would not be required to construct a Palmetto Drive extension. So there will not be a road connection as part of this project. And in fact, the applicant will be required to install a buffer adjacent to what's considered vacant land to the north. So the second part of this presentation includes an evaluation of the case under the Cary Community Plan. Staff has analyzed the proposal for compliance with the Cary Community Plan. There are 4 aspects that the staff examined. First, we looked at plan policies. Second, we looked at guidance regarding infill compatibility, guidance regarding transitions between developments, and the site's future growth framework map designation. So to provide a bit more detail on each of these 4 aspects, we have we have identified these 5 policies as having applicability to the case. 3 from the Live chapter and 1 from the Work and Shape chapters. Regarding infill compatibility, we would call your attention to this guiding statement from the plan. Residential infill should be in visual harmony with the surrounding context, but not that the homes must be the same type of housing or look exactly the same. The plan also devotes a lot of attention to transitions, as transitions become increasingly more important in infill redevelopment situations. There are 4 approaches to transitions identified in the plan, including form, use, architectural transitions, and natural buffer. The last aspect we examine is regarding consistency with the growth framework map. As seen from this section of the growth framework map, the property is located in the heritage neighborhood category. Heritage neighborhood is all of this area identified in pink. Heritage neighborhoods are described in Chapter 6 of the Cary Community Plan, which is the Shape chapter. They are defined as homes built during Cary's first suburban boom of the 1960s and 70s, and they contain a wide variety of housing types, housing sizes, lot sizes, and densities. Heritage neighborhoods are the most mixed of any of the 4 neighborhood types. The character is further defined by being well-connected, convenient, with a variety of housing types and pricing points. Housing sizes do not dominate their lots. So with that concludes the analysis of the Cary Community Plan. To summarize the analysis, staff finds that this rezoning request is supported by the Cary Community Plan. More specifically, the rezoning supports the town goals related to infill, housing diversity, and transitions. So with that, town staff recommends approval of this rezoning request. I should note that this is a preliminary recommendation. A separate recommendation will be provided by the board tonight. Both the staff and the P&Z board recommendations will be sent to the town council for final action. I will also note that starting with the Cary Community Plan adoption, town staff will be providing recommendations on all cases moving forward. This case was the first case to start with a public hearing process after the adoption of the Cary Community Plan, which is why it's coming forward to you all tonight with a recommendation from staff. So this concludes staff's presentation. The applicant is here to share comments. I should also note that for the public hearing tonight, properties within 800 feet of the subject site were notified of the public hearing. The property was posted with public hearing signs, and legal ads were placed in accordance with the Town of Cary Land Development Ordinance. I should also note, as a reminder, the Land Development Ordinance requires that public testimony at this second public hearing should be limited to comments upon new or substantially changed aspects of the rezoning case, which have occurred following the original Town Council public hearing. So with that, we'll be available following the public hearing for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Very comprehensive. Appreciate it. We'll now hear from the applicant.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Willie Hood. I'm a landscape architect and land planner at Raleigh, North Carolina. We've come a long way since we first submitted this case, from 23 townhomes to 9 single-family homes, and we have really tried our best to listen to what the neighbors' concerns were and try to craft conditions that would meet those concerns. One of the things that we did do was put the 30-foot street setback in so that it would be similar to the street setbacks of the R12 and the R8. And I want to thank staff for a very thorough presentation, and thanks for their support, and we seek your support also. Thank you.
Good evening, board members. I'm Kevin Campbell. I'm the president and CEO of Habitat for Humanity of Wake County, and I reside at 104 Whitby Court in Cary. Thank you for your time this evening to hear this case. We are excited about this project. As others have mentioned, it's been a long process, but I think a good one in which we've sought to be good neighbors and listeners throughout the process, which we have heard a lot of concerns shared and have sought in our various iterations, as Katie described, to take into account. In fact, the proposal that the second proposal, the 15-lot proposal, was a proposal that came to us from a neighborhood resident, and as well as listening to the concerns about attached housing resulted in the third proposal that we're talking about tonight. Katie mentioned, and I just wanted to reinforce, we think this is a perfect site for affordable housing within the town of Cary that works for us as developers of affordable housing. And to just comment on the Cary Community Plan, the plan calls for to provide affordable dwellings within the plan, support residential development on infill and residential sites, and provide more housing choices for all residents. In addition to supporting the Imagine Cary objective, the proposal also fits within the plan's future growth framework map, which is on page 93 of the plan. The map designates the area around Trimble Avenue as a heritage neighborhood. According to the plan, predominant use types for these neighborhoods are residential and provide for a broad housing mix on page 94 and 95. Planned uses are single-family detached, single-family attached, and multifamily developments. Appropriate zoning for these areas includes transitional residential, which is the designation which we are seeking for this project. We've heard numerous times, I've heard numerous times, that the issue of affordable housing is not germane to these proceedings, and I understand where that's coming from, but I would take a moment to differ, if you'd hear me out on that, in that density of development really is one of the primary ways that a local government entity in the state of North Carolina can help meet the jurisdiction's overall objectives for affordability, and that is a primary factor in this proposal and the previous iterations of it. Habitat's hope is to develop these lots into affordable homeownership opportunities so that people who may wish to live in Cary but can't afford the increasing housing costs might have options. Examples of citizens who might benefit from this project include medical assistants, firefighters, public school employees, child care providers, EMTs, etc., service industry workers. These are people who are already contributing to the Cary community but may not necessarily be able to afford housing close to where they work. We hope to create increased access to housing for them. So to close, we're excited about the proposal and feel it gives great opportunities for affordable home ownership in Cary. Higher home ownership rates can have broad community benefits, including higher overall home values, lower crime rates, and better school outcomes. As the #1 wealth-building tool for families in America, affordable home ownership has the unique potential to remove barriers to a better, healthier, and more financially stable future. So we thank you for your time to consider this proposal.
Thank you. So if we have questions for the applicant or the staff later on, we can bring them back up. Right now, though, it's time to hear from ladies and gentlemen in the audience. The public hearing is now open for you. Just come down and give the card to the clerk.
Good evening, Board. I'm Anthony Chris Arnold. Most folks just call me Tony. I live at 910 Brook Green Drive. That puts me downstream from the property under consideration. I've lived there 23 years. Last year, the town spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to purchase and demolish the house at what was used to be 221 Trimble because it was in the middle of a 100-year floodplain. 20 years ago, I came before the council when it was first rezoned to show pictures of that whole area underwater. For more than 20 years, I've seen the volume and velocity of water coming down that stream increase. Much of the property behind me is now labeled a 100-year floodplain. But I see that area flood every year, several times per year, deeper and deeper and deeper. Last year, my own home flooded, even though my house is not even in a 500-year floodplain. Cary stormwater employees came out more than once to examine the damage. They also brought out a representative of the state flood program. They all said my flooding was due to a once in more than 1,000-year event, but they each said they couldn't promise it wouldn't happen next week. By my count, we've seen 2 1,000-year flood events or rainfall events in the last 6 years. But my house didn't flood in the first one in 2011 before recent development upstream, the apartments along Old Apex, or the Islamic Center still under construction. Billy Lee, the aforementioned Cary stormwater manager, explained to me in late January the process of filing a complaint with the town of Cary. As I looked at the form, I realized the problem wasn't just mine, and that's why 17 other homeowners joined with me in a petition for stormwater improvement. We've asked the town to commission a study to evaluate and come up with a plan for remediation. Much of the problem comes from the roads that were built 30 to 50 years ago. They did not bridge the creeks. They paved over them and confined them into culverts that, as development has gone on over the last half century, there's a whole lot more water coming down that creek. And it's backing up, and those roads are now serving as dams. And that's what flooded my home. So the danger is real. It's not just a property. One of these days it may involve human lives. Each additional gallon of runoff from hard surfaces caused by new development, like those 9 parking pads, water is just going to run right down off of them, onto the street, right down to the end of the street, into the creek. Any rain, these 10-year retention ponds don't help with a 100-year flood, much less a 500 or 1,000-year. The town may need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to demolish more houses. So I'm asking you, as the board, to consider this very real problem that we are experiencing. I know Billy Lee will be available later to discuss that. He tells me it could be 2 years before the adequate study and plan and proposals can be acted upon. I'm requesting you to vote no, as I understand it. That's the only, you can't postpone it more than 90 days. But I'm begging you really to vote no on this rezoning and any rezoning and any development in this watershed until the problem is fixed. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Scott D. Doug. Like Tony, I live downstream in the TSAP area of this high-density infill development that's been going on and on. And like Tony and like literally 200 other houses that are affected by that flooding, I've seen it get worse and worse and worse every year. The remediation doesn't help. The new stormwater processes don't help. We're losing yards. Our houses are flooding. And it is definitely getting worse. What I wanted to come tonight, just to put on record, was that these decisions are flooding us out. And what Tony mentioned is the damming effect. The 2006 report that the town commissioned for this area, for the TSAP area, said this would happen. And now it's happening. And it's getting worse. So every decision like you're making tonight that's been done for the last 10, 12, 15 years has contributed to this flooding, and we're all seeing it. The downtown area has caused massive flooding and erosion. So what I'm asking is just stop and don't hide behind the process. The process says, well, stormwater comes later. But we are losing our properties. It's the 2006 Dewberry report that the town commission identified over 200 homes, just like Tony's and just like ours, that are going to be affected. The water's coming up and up. And that's why all of a sudden, oh yeah, it was a bad storm, but had the work been done to upgrade a 1950s stormwater system, which is literally ditches and culverts underneath the roads, most of them need to be increased by 8 times. That work was detailed to be about $10 million back, $8 to $10 million back then. It needs to be done now. I know it's not your decision, but what I'm asking you to do is just look at the process and say, hold on a minute. Fix this first. Let's be sure that we can rerun that study and tell every one of us homeowners downstream that these 9 townhouses, which might be 15, by the way, if someone else buys the property, won't flood our houses anymore. That's all I'm asking you to do. Stop it now. Say no. Let them come back after the stormwater studies have been done and after these stormwater improvements in all the TSAP areas has been made. I guess just lastly, I want to say it's ironic that to get 9 affordable houses, we're willing to flood 200 of the most affordable houses in Cary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, folks. My name is Kevin Slinkman. I have one simple question. Once this zoning gets passed, if it does get passed to TRCU, I believe it is, and does it limit 9 dwellings, or can it later on be increased to 15 or something like that? That's a very simple question that I'd like to have answered sometime tonight. Thank you very much.
And while you go on, I'll make just reinforce something that our last speaker just pointed out. He asked the question but didn't wait around for the answer. We won't be interacting with you. We're just here to listen. So hats off for the way he handled that.
Hello, my name's Tucker Johnson. I live on Haddington Drive. I'm upstream, luckily. I've been there quite some time. I will comment on some of the things that were mentioned in the presentation. As you know, we started with 23. I had heard 27. It went down to 15. It went down to 9. The problem is it went down right during the meetings. We never had a chance to understand the effect of what they were proposing. If you go to the town meeting where we had a public presentation, halfway through that meeting they told us that they had to go down to 9. Now, was that because somebody listened? No. It's because they made a mistake for a second time and they couldn't build 15. This was not a case where somebody was trying to do the right thing by listening to the public. Even the town council had a vote to ask whether they should repeat the public hearing because of the radical change that happened not just to the number of dwellings, but also to the type of dwelling. Because they were going from a parking lot with 15 at that time to suddenly 9, with 9 driveways. The people that attended that meeting didn't have a time to kind of review and say, what's going on here? We were just told, that's what you're going to do, because that's all we can afford. We have to have the price. Well, I called Habitat for Humanity in Washington, and I asked, what's the cost to raise a house? What's the cost to build 1 versus 9? Just the cost of raising the house is the same. Sometimes 1 could be more expensive, sometimes 8, depends how much of the volunteers and the donations come in. But in general, they find that they're getting donations for the land to defray that. And I just felt like at the end of that meeting that it was a fraud as far as having a real public hearing on a proposal. I thought the people of Scottish Hills were really set back on that. And the other thing I noticed was in the community plan here that was presented. That was interesting, but it talked about the variety of homes. Now, we can raise 2 homes there now and they can be affordable. We can do that. We don't even need a rezoning to do that. Somebody says, no, you can't because the land costs more. We can get donations for the land. But the variety of 9 homes are going to be cookie cutter. They're going to look exactly the same. And so the neighborhood will not have the variety of home that the Cary community plan suggests we should have. And I consider those to be, it's going to be, man, I hate to say this. We have neighbors after neighbors that are now calling each other traitors because of this. I mean, Scottish Hills just is not the friendly place that it was last year because of this situation. And there is a new name for this area. It's called Uglyville. And that's because not of what the homes would look like, not because of the people that might move into them, because of the process of going from 23 to 15 to 9. Every time there's a meeting, I expected tonight it was going to go down to 4 up to 20. I didn't know. So I don't consider this to be them listening to us. I didn't hear it at all in this process. I'm sorry, but those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brian Blockle, and I happen to live at 1101 Balmoral Drive, which is not quite on your picture there, but it extends off of Trimble. There's a funny-looking shaped road that goes both left and right off of Trimble at the base. So I'm just a couple houses away. A couple of things that came up, and I know this is supposed to be just on current stuff, but I will cite a historical reference or two. And please indulge me, and I will try to be brief. First of all, I'm appreciative that we have a town that we could voice these concerns and that we have a process. I'm not against Habitat for Humanity. And a matter of fact, if they would include a couple of veterans in the houses that could be affordable, I'd be really happy. But what I really want to say is I went to a series of meetings about this topic, and each time the housing size became the difference. Like, well, if we don't have this amount of houses, we can't afford to build there. That's not really the citizens of Cary's problem, but certainly not the citizens of Scottish Hills. I brought up at the meeting, if we could just look at the picture, I guess, do you guys have the same PowerPoint slide on your computer? Just the thing that I really, truly hate about the plan is across the street from the proposed rectangle, which is circled in purple, are 4 houses. And the houses across the street will be half the size. Just the fuzzy math of it, they have to be smaller. I know that there's a board member or two in this building. I think that if I went to your neighborhood and I measured any one of your neighborhood's property frontage and it showed you a plan that was going to include houses to be half the size, I think there would be some other concerns other than just the citizens here. One of the problems that I found, though, is that kind of dovetailing off with the gentleman prior to being on the podium, is that the plan kept changing based on what Habitat wants to pay per house for the parcel of land. I went to the meeting when the church was trying to sell the land. They didn't say we want to sell this land for this wonderful, mission thing. They're trying to raise money, just like anybody else who might want to sell a parcel of land. I also don't understand why we're being compared to the Heritage subdivision when it's really truly Scottish Hills we're trying to match. And we already have mixed-use kind of houses in Scottish Hills. Applecross is a place where it has attached homes that are affordable, probably even less than the prices of the HUD houses that we were told can't be affordable. Sterling Forest and a couple other subdivisions that I don't know the names of, but they have very, very small, tiny houses. Some are attached and some are separate, but they're all together and they're separate cul-de-sacs. So I know that this grant is available from the government, and if it can subsidize things, I'm hoping that the house lot sizes still decrease. I think it's still too much concentrated population on that particular frontage of property. And again, like magic, it seems to change each meeting to meeting, and I know it's going in a positive direction, but it hasn't always been for the kindness just to please us. I think it's just been more logistics that they discover as they go through. But I think if Habitat wants to provide houses and can get donations, I don't think the cost per house should really be the factor. They first told us, I think, that if they didn't get 15 houses, they couldn't buy the property. And now we're here, and it's 9 houses. I wish somehow the numbers can shrink, even if it was to 6. I just think it should look more like the houses in the neighborhood and front them the way it's supposed to be. I would recommend that you vote no unless the density decreases. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Invite our next speaker up.
Hi, my name is Judy Blackwell, Brian's other half, better half. I, too, would hope that you would not do the amount of houses on this property. If you go to slide 28 or 27, it shows that there were only 4 houses in that 2.5 acre area, and the homes in our neighborhood are about 1/3 of an acre, and that would show 5 to 6 homes for that 2.5 acres. To me, the way they're looking is going to be railroad homes that we used to have in New York, the flats that were railroad, one room after another. There were no spaces. I don't agree with my husband that they're not visually harmony to the neighborhood. The other part, my husband did talk about affordable houses. There are condos that are about 900 square feet behind Kirk Kildare. They're $93,000. $9,300, $1,000. So my son just bought one there, so he got affordable housing in Cary. And the traffic on Chatham is another concern for me. I know that it was discussed. And just a little side smirk comment for me. When I moved to Cary, it was considered the town of no. Most people said, no, you can't have a red roof on Red Roof Inn. You can't have Taco Bell to have the correct colors. So I am opposed to tiny homes. I don't know why you wouldn't say no to tiny homes in Cary. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mark Russin. My wife and I, Deborah, and myself live at 1104 Balmoral Drive, North Scottish Hills. We're the original owner of that home. We've been there 31 years, raised 2 daughters. I'm against anything that is inconsistent with the flavor of the existing neighborhood. And I think this plan still is not within the consistency and flavor of this neighborhood. You look at the map right across the street, the length of this property across the street, there's, I believe, 5 lots. You're almost doubling the size from 5 to 10, and they're so narrow, so long and narrow now with 3 feet that you could literally reach your hand out the window and shake hands with your neighbor. The other thing I find interesting, I just mentioned, is it was mentioned that the zoning committee cannot consider who's actually making the purchase, what the houses are, what the costs are, but the Cary Community Plan does exactly that. So there seems to be an inconsistency between the Cary Community Plan and what the zoning committee can consider. So I just find that interesting. So I would just please also ask that this be voted against unless the density can be reduced. Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening. I'm Don Elias. I live at 116 Tribble Avenue, immediately across from the property for which rezoning is being requested, and therefore I will be directly affected. I have drawn up and am giving you a sketch plan of what I understand is the proposed development for which rezoning is requested. 9 narrow, small homes, well below market value for the area, are to face Trimble Avenue directly in a linear space along Trimble that would support 5 or at most 6 homes compatible with the immediate neighborhood, a crowding increase of almost 50%. The homes are to have a 30-foot setback from the Trimble right-of-way, while the surrounding homes have a 45-foot setback. Each of the small homes is to have a side-by-side parking pad, thus no garages, with direct driveway access to Trimble. Even without a possible street sidewalk, this leaves virtually no green landscape space available for compatible with the neighborhood. When I look out from my house, I will see a virtual wall of small, close together, cookie-cutter homes with no real landscaping, crowded close to the street, and up to 18 vehicles. When touring the neighborhood, one does not get an immediate impression of cars, close together narrow homes, no lawns, and no landscaping. The proposed development is not the type of neighborhood near which I would want to purchase a home. The existing neighborhood is not a rundown trailer park for which the proposed development would be an improvement. Nor does the neighborhood consist of rundown homes that are to be refurbished, which would be an improvement. Simply, the rezoning will allow a proposed development that is not compatible to the area, is not an improvement, and will be a liability rather than an asset. I urge that the proposed zoning be denied. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Euler, and I live on Balmoral Drive, which is a street connecting to Trimble Avenue. I am asking you to take into consideration what the staff may not have when recommending approval. Your definition of a heritage neighborhood may be what you have described, but it doesn't describe Scottish Hills, Savon Heights, or Plantation Estates. The surrounding lots are at least 11,000 square feet and a minimum of R8. TRCU doesn't blend or fit with the existing neighborhood. Scottish Hills North and North Meadow were built in the 90s. They're considered apparently heritage. And they're directly across the street from this property and are all classified as R8. This area is not close enough to downtown to walk there, so I do not consider my house close to downtown. Apples and oranges are similar. They are brightly colored in both fruit, but calling this plan similar to the character of the surrounding area is like comparing apples and oranges. What you're trying to convince us and are using to get this approved is that it is appropriate, and it simply is not. You wanted to create an appropriate transition from institutional and assembly use to a medium-density residential use. On the north, it's labeled a vacant, and I can only assume that's the area that was deeded to the town that prevents Palmetto Extension from going in. If that's true, then just beyond that is another detached dwelling consistent with the other properties bordering the land. There is no transition from institutional and assembly. There's a house there between the assembly, institution, and the land. Houses on all sides. Your definition of medium density is too wide for us to be happy with what we know this plan to be, so it doesn't fit. To speak to your live policies 1, 2, 3, and 5, a denser arrangement of single-family detached housing, increasing housing choice for residents, and sympathetic to the character, style, and scale of the surrounding neighborhoods. These homes will not increase the housing choices. They are still all single-family, and they are most certainly not sympathetic to the character, style, and scale of the surrounding neighborhoods. The town has no home square footage requirements, so we can only base what they will build here on what they have built in Cary in the past. I have a list of all the current Habitat homes, their lot sizes, and square footage. I only have one copy, so if you would like to pass it around. There's 2 pages. One has all of the homes, the Habitat homes, and one is the current Trimble Avenue homes. As you can see, the average existing home is much larger, almost 800 square feet larger, and the existing lots are quarter-acre lots. The new ones will be less than 1/5 of an acre, and the average square foot's about 1,040, 800 square feet smaller than existing homes. 9 homes side by side of that small size will not blend into the immediate neighborhood. Based on the 7,000 to 8,000 square foot lots proposed, TRCU zoning is not consistent with the surrounding lots and therefore will not fit the look and feel of the surrounding homes. I would also like to speak of number 6 of the Part 3B applicant's rezoning justification statements. Number 6 says the proposed zoning classification is suitable for the subject property, includes overall character of the larger neighborhood, which contains single-family, institutional, commercial, and townhome development along Old Apex Road and West Chatham Streets. The even larger neighborhood is Cary as a whole, and there are plenty of sites that this would be appropriate, but to say that our neighborhood consists of townhomes on Old Apex or the restaurants, vet clinic, and gas station on Chatham is more than a stretch. It's an absolute ridiculous statement. We only have single-family homes. Habitat promised 8,000 square foot lots, and that is not what this plan includes. They changed from what they publicly said at the town council meeting. They have also, to my knowledge, not met with any member of our community since the town council meeting. They have not fulfilled what the council asked of them. For this reason and all the reasons I have stated, I have to say no to this rezoning.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to talk today. My name is Alla Lifenko, and I live at 118 Trimble Avenue, which is lot directly across from the lot we're discussing today. We bought our house a year ago. Before that, we've been renting in a nearby apartment complex. And the reason we bought this particular house is because we absolutely love our neighborhood. We love old trees on the properties. We love the spacious and private backyards. My guess is that all will disappear as soon as rezoning will be approved. All those old oak trees that we love so much look at across the road will be gone as soon as construction starts. And instead of those nice trees, we will be looking at 9 tiny houses that are stuck together like sardines in the jar. And if I come to look at my house and see these strange settlements across the road, I would absolutely tell to my husband to keep driving. My point is that I would not buy this house, even if it was half price. What developer proposed here is creating a neighborhood within neighborhood, and I'm not fine with it. Don't get me wrong, when we bought our house, we knew that this lot will be developed. And I tell you more, we want it to be developed. It's just for the same reason we don't want $1 million mansion across the street. We don't want tiny houses on tiny lots. So it just will look ugly and it will not blend. We have been described as the bad people who don't like the diversity or who don't want to welcome new neighbors in our neighborhood. That is not true. We want new families to move in, and we don't care who will move in. So we just want them to move into nice houses on nice lots. Another point I would like to bring today is that we own 6 cars right now on that portion of Trimble. And by we, I mean those 4 houses that face the lot. If this rezoning is approved, we're looking at minimum 18 more cars on that strip of Trimble. And if we count visitors, friends, and family, it's probably like altogether will be around 30 cars daily coming in and out, in and out. At this point, I do fear for the safety of my kids. So, in fact, I fear for safety of all the kids who currently live in the neighborhood or who will move in our neighborhood. So, the thing is that I daily walk my kids to the bus stop, which is located on the corner of Trimble and Chatham. This particular bus stop is not safe itself. But my point is that that bus drive is 15 minutes long because kids are taken to Turner Creek Elementary School, which is our base school and is located over 5 miles away. So if you do not want your kids to be stuck for 2 hours daily on a bus, or you simply cannot afford to live on one income, you are looking at minimum an hour spent on the road. That is, if you're lucky and not stuck in carpool or traffic. Extra 20 miles daily, because you are required to drop your kids for before school care and pick them up from after school care. So, and lot of extra costs coming with this. For example, need for a second car, and that car must be reliable. Extra money for gas and extra time. Wouldn't it be easier and more convenient for the families to live closer to school? Yes, it would. In fact, nobody wins here except for seller, because they get rid of outrageously overpriced piece of land, and buyer, who will make a lot of money selling trim that will very soon turn into nightmare. So to wrap up my talk, I ask you to preserve an appeal and integrity of our neighborhood. It don't allow this rezoning to happen. Thank you.
Thank you. May we have our next speaker, please?
I couldn't find my most recent pair of prescription glasses, so I might need to hold it out a little bit. My name is Ann Dennis, and I live at 112 Trimble Avenue. One of the four homes that's directly going to face the parcel of land. And I made some adjustments to what I was going to say tonight based on what I've heard. So what I want to mention most importantly is why limit the lot size to 7,000 or 8,000 square feet? There's 2.58 acres of land that would be purchased, and 9 homes that would be the average single-family home that Habitat builds is over 1,000, between 1,000 and 1,100 square feet. On 2.5 acres, 9 homes of that size on lots 7,000 to 8,000 square feet apiece, which corresponds to 0.16 to 0.18 acres. I don't see how that is the best use of the land. There seems to be a lot left over. The homes will all front Trimble Avenue, all 9. Why not make these blend and scatter them around? This plan is consistent on how the developer has built all homes in Cary in the past 40 years. It will not be different here. They will be close together in a row, as many as possible. If you don't live in Scottish Hills, you may not realize that subdivisions in this area blend together perfectly, not knowing where one begins and one ends. That's part of the beauty. We want to keep it that way. There is a sign that would be in the middle of the subdivision. Well, it's not. That is where Scottish Hills begins, according to the plat. In reality, Savon Heights, Plantation Estates, North Meadow, and the home to the right of the land and the home to the left of the land, I don't know if they're even named anything, they don't have signs. Many people, when this began, didn't even know those names existed until the controversy began. It's a big controversy, if you're not aware, which I'm sure you are. There are many no Trimble rezoning signs posted in yards as a reminder that we don't want anything built that will make people say, what the heck is that? We don't care. We don't care for labels. We are one big family and are represented here tonight as one. Those homes will be viewed as part of our neighborhood as we would want them to be, And this is what has concerned us and brought us here tonight, and over 100 of us to the past 3 meetings, the 2 community meetings held in December and January, and the February Town Council meeting. It is what 160 townhomes, no, it is what 160 households signed against having. Single-family detached homes that do match the look and feel of the existing neighborhood would be very welcome. I guess this didn't get through, this message, no matter how loud and how clear we were and continue to be. If you allow any developer, to build these tiny homes and subdivide this lot to build tiny homes on the tiny lots, all fronting Trimble. It will change the neighborhood forever. It sets a precedent for others to buy a lot, tear down a house, and make it too. We have seen this happen on Waldo Street and Evans Road, and we don't want to see this happen here. If you drive down to those properties, peek out the car window, you can tell those are Habitat homes right away. At least I did. I found myself driving down Evans Road, and I said to myself, I think I remember Habitat built 2 homes here side by side. As I was driving, I passed many types of homes and businesses, churches, apartments, single-family homes, and so on. And then there were 2 freshly built-looking homes, crammed together, with a fence on either side separating them from the adjacent buildings. Funny looking, in my opinion. We don't want a developer to come in, buy some lots, or even one, tear down the house and build 2 where one once was. That is essentially what you are allowing here if you allow this rezoning. You are saying that is okay. It is not. 9, where mirrored, are currently 4, or backing up to the current 5 homes on the opposite side.
I'm afraid I'll have to stop you there. You've run out of time. If you got someone else behind you, you can get them to finish up.
I ran out. Darn it all. I have something to pass around,
Sure.
And I made a few copies, just our understanding based on the applicant's information, our understanding of visually what this would look like. Yeah.
If someone wants to pick that up where you left off,
Speak here.
be fine.
My name is Doris Garlick. I live at 1100 Midland Avenue. I live exactly behind the proposed houses that you plan to build. We've lived there for 37 years. When we first moved in, we immediately realized we had a problem. The house was 6 years old. We had a problem with the furnace. We had to have, I figured exactly what, but it's we had that worked on. We became concerned about mold under the house. This was 37 years ago. My husband took a shovel and dug a trench around our house so that the water would go across our backyard and onto this proposed housing that you're going to do. So 37 years has gone by, and we now have it's filled in. Tree roots are grown on top of the ground. We have a problem again. Just recently, we had several inches of water in our carport. My husband is now 81 years old. We've got a problem. I'm not sure what we're going to do. We've got to do something now, and I guess we need to find somebody with a plow or something. But anyway, believe me, we will plow around our house, and this water will go down into these proposed houses. So this is what you're thinking about building. You're going to have houses that water's going to be coming in.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Hector Escobar, and I live in Scottish Hills, 916 Canarsie Circle. For the first time, I do believe that I had to do the job the Americans don't want to do, and that is the dirty work. I didn't have the privilege, I didn't have the honor to born with an American birth certificate under my arm. I came from another land, and it was a struggle all my life. And I work to reach the American dream. And one of the American dreams is to own your own home. Nobody in this room buys a home thinking 10 years later is going to sell it to affordable. If anybody going to sell the house down the future, they want to expect to get the most they can possibly can get, because it's a business decision. It's not affordable decision. It's a business decision. Everybody here owns a house and thinking down the road is going to sell it for more than what they pay for. So let me tell you something about why I'm disagreeing with this rezoning. I, for once, do not believe that Habitat for Humanity will match the character and the aesthetic of my neighbor. Why? Because if I fall into economic problems, I can go to the bank and say, look, I want to refinance my house. I can shop around for a percentage to get a better rate. Or I can get a home equity, pay my kids' college, or pay my debts. They can do that. They cannot do that. They can, if they want to get some money, they can. They got to go back to Habitat. Let me tell you something. I bought my American Dream home. What they're selling you is a trap. It is a trap. Because if one of them wants to sell a house, they can. They cannot rent it. They cannot sell it. They have to go back to Habitat and say, look, I can no longer pay for this house. That alone does not match the character of my neighborhood. So, neighbors, my fellow neighbors, stand with me and don't be afraid to be hurt. I disagree with that. I don't want that on my neighbor. I worked all these years to buy me a house, the dream house. And one day I can sell it and give them whatever I get to my kids. But what are they going to do? Who are they going to sell it to? Nobody wants to buy that. Nobody. Let's make this an economic decision, not a politics. It's not a politics. It's economics. Everybody here buy a house with economics mind. They don't think about, oh, I pay $200,000. I'm going to sell it for $150,000. Nobody. Anybody of you do that? You don't need to answer because I already know the answer. You bought a house for $300,000. 10 years from now, you want to sell it for $400,000 or $500,000. They cannot do that. And that would affect my neighbor. Stand with me if you agree with me.
Okay, we're not going to do that a second time, okay? All right?
So I'm just saying, please consider everybody there. And I'm going to give you a piece of story in American life. When America wants to become independent, they didn't tell the British, oh, we can afford, we don't want to pay you taxes. You know what Americans did? They fought. So I don't want people to be surrenders in my neighborhood. I want them to be fighters because that's the American value. I don't want to surrender on my neighbor. I don't want to share a trash. I want everybody in my house, everybody in my neighbor are welcome as long as they play by the rules like everybody else. They want to go to Arms Barnes to get a steak, but they want to pay for a hot dog. That's not right. That's not fair. Please consider us. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, folks, I neglected to mention it earlier, but let's not do the applause and cheering stuff. It's been a pretty nice, even-keeled hearing so far, so let's just keep it rolling that way.
They won't be cheering for me. My name is Stephanie Brinson. I live at 1107 Medlin, which is within 800 feet, so I got the letter letting me know you guys are meeting tonight. And I'm here in support of the rezoning request. I agree with the idea of putting 9 houses on that lot, and let's see if we can get them as affordable as we can. The more housing choices policy 2 in the live section, number 3, the more housing options in the new development, number 5, supporting residential development infill that the staff member already talked about in the recommendation, all makes perfect sense to me. And I was part of trying to push that Cary plan through, and so I'm very happy to see that we're using it the way we should to look at what we want to do with our town as we move forward. Policy 1, to maintain the neighborhood character, seems to be in great debate this evening. I drove down Trimble Avenue to get here tonight, specifically made an effort of going all the way down Trimble, very, very slowly looking at all the houses. You have 5 different decades represented on that street. You've got all brick, no brick. You've got 2-story, 1-story ranch. You've got clearly have a basement, clearly doesn't have a basement. I don't know what the architectural looks like everything else would even look like It would be like the building a elephant by committee. Everybody sees the trunk or the tail or the legs, and nobody can see the whole thing. Trimble Avenue, taken as a whole, is very, very diverse. And so 9 more houses done in a slightly different architecture would add to that diversity and not look out of place, in my opinion. The policy also to support the provision of affordable dwellings wasn't brought up in the staff proposal, but I think it's very important. The journey that brought us here today came from the fact that there was a town meeting a neighborhood meeting that said Habitat for Humanity is coming. That's how the flyers that arrived on my porch stated it. This had everything to do with who's trying to build it, so it's a little hard to ignore that as we move forward. I won't go into my whole 5-minute speech on how they're awesome. It's just really hard to put aside the fact that we're trying to build affordable housing in Cary. We need more. We need people who need affordable living to live in the community that they work in to be able to live there. I'll leave it at that. The tone of the second neighborhood meeting that I attended was amazing, and I really appreciate the staff sanitizing that into a list of concerns that the neighbors had. But I think there's as much about who's going to move into those houses as anything else, and the pushback against this, and that disappoints me. I really hope the stormwater problems can be addressed. Clearly, we have a problem, and clearly there needs to be a study, and I really hope that gets addressed. The first time I bought a house in Raleigh, our neighbor, it was in an area that was being taken in by the city. Within months of me buying that house, I'm getting notices, we're about to take you in. And I thought I had bought on the edge of Raleigh, but no, I was going to be inside. And at the first meeting, we asked the guy who was there to represent the city, why are you taking us in? We're perfectly happy where we are. And he said, cities grow or die. I didn't really like that phrasing, but 30 years later, I'm beginning to understand better what he meant. Less than 20% of Cary, and you're pretty much constrained now on what Cary can be size-wise. Only 18% of it, I think, is left undeveloped, so we've got to be really smart about what we use. Everything can't look the same. My motto is, if things aren't changing, I must be dead. So I really hope you vote in favor of the proposal. I think it's going to be a great little neighborhood. I'll do everything I can to help out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kathy Davis. I'm at 1213 Balmoral, up near Brook Green. The water problems have been addressed very well. That's the main thing I have been concerned about, because I can see that the people who've already lost part of their backyard and live on Trimble and around there will be the most severely affected. Property values also bother me somewhat. I don't think it'll probably affect my house that much. I don't think it'll affect Haddington or other streets, but it will affect Trimble. Every single meeting we've been to, they've said, statistics show property values aren't affected. It will affect those. There's a house on Trimble that's been for sale for quite a while, and the sign is still there. And I strongly suspect it's because nobody's looking at it until this is settled. So it may not affect other people, but it's going to affect Trimble. One thing that we have been told at every single meeting, Habitat first said they needed to build 23 houses there to make it cost effective. Now it's 16 houses to make it cost effective. Now it's 9 houses or they can't afford it. What happens if it gets rezoned and Habitat discovers it is not cost effective? They cannot build 9 houses there. The zoning has been changed. Can they sell the property to somebody else and make a profit, and that person come in, that developer come in and build apartment complexes or townhouses? We don't know, but once that the zoning is changed, anyone that Habitat ends up selling to or having to sell to can come in and go back to putting in 23 condos. And this is something that must be considered. I greatly appreciate your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Another speaker?
My name is Judy Foley, and I live across the street from Kathy on Balmoral. And my notes keep changing as people are speaking tonight. There is an existence in 3 blocks from this location, a Habitat for Humanity project. I drive through that neighborhood sometimes and I look at it, and my concern is they're probably wonderful people living in those houses. There's multiple cars on the weekends in their front yards and all over the street, and I wonder what 21 years, that's what it looks like 21 years after it was developed, what Trimble Avenue will look like 21 years from now, and how that will affect the neighborhood. I have a neighbor that lives next door to me that has had multiple issues with the runoff on Balmoral, that they actually lost a car in one of the rainstorms, flooded it out, and they had to replace it. I've only heard one person in here that says, let's root for this. I don't think anybody in this room is against Habitat for Humanity and their main goal and vision for helping people. And probably everybody or majority of people in here have either contributed their time or money or taken stuff to the restore. They support the idea of it, but they want them to fit in with the rest of us. We don't want them to stick out like a sore thumb. They should be like us if they want to be in the neighborhood. Make smaller houses, or make them look like the rest of us. There's enough variety on Trimble that they should be able to fit in without stirring up trouble. And I'm randomizing here because everybody has been so eloquent since I sat down that I thought, I'm trying to figure out what hasn't been covered. I do worry about the traffic, as other people do, that when you drive down Johnson Street, there are too many cars. And if a fire truck or police or an ambulance has to go down that street right now, it would not be safe. So I don't know if there's anything else I can add, but if this was somebody other than Habitat requesting for this to be passed and rezoned, as strict as the town of Cary usually is on rezoning, they would be questioning it, and they would probably say, no, somebody else cannot do this. So I don't think you should be voting because it's Habitat the way you think you're going to vote. You should vote as if it was somebody else asking you to change the rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sarah Forging. I also live in Scottish Hills, and like many people who live in Cary, I am a relocated Yankee. I fled Northern Virginia 10 years ago, and the town I grew up in was very much like Cary when I was a kid. It was very community-oriented. It was a suburb. It was where people lived. It was not where, traffic was. It was not the city, even though it was inside of Washington, D.C. And 10 years before I left, there were major changes in zoning in that area. Infill development went through the roof. They started mixing houses with traditional heritage neighborhoods, and the quality of life declined rapidly. And we're not talking about cheap houses, small houses, little houses. $1 million houses have the same effect on a neighborhood when you start mixing them up, and it doesn't match the character of the neighborhood. I have friends whose houses encountered the flooding that people are concerned about, even though they did the flooding studies, even though there was zoning in place. And that is a real concern, and I've seen it happen, and I don't want that to happen to my new home. There's been a lot of talk about affordable housing, and from what I understand, Habitat for Humanity looks at, are people paying 30% or more of their income towards their mortgage or rent? And there's been talk about how the fire and EMS folks who work in the community can't live there. And after the last meeting that was brought up, and I actually looked it up, and there was a job posting for Firefighter 1 in Cary. It was a job paid more than $37,000 a year. And at that rate, your mortgage would have to be about $1,000 to qualify a month to qualify for a Habitat house. Our house in Scottish Hills, our mortgage is less than that. So I would say Scottish Hills is already affordable. And you're already pricing out the people that were claiming to help. I bought my house making less than a teacher's salary, a starting teacher's salary. And I did it by eating macaroni and cheese for 6 months. I didn't have cable. Like, it is affordable. If you were to buy our house in Raleigh, it would be $50,000 more. And a lot of folks moved to our neighborhood for the quality of life, the large yards, the sense of community, the houses that are set back. I will confess, there are a lot of really ugly houses in my neighborhood. But they fit. They match. You see the same house over and over repeated throughout Scottish Hills. And I think everyone here who laughed knows what I'm talking about. And this is not about who's planning to buy. I resent the neighbor on Medlin's insinuation that we don't want poor people living here. I volunteered with Habitat for Humanity. I have volunteered with housing partnerships in Virginia. My concern is the same concern I had in Northern Virginia. You bend the rules, you change the character of the neighborhood. What if Habitat falls through and you've changed the zoning? What if it was a different developer who came in? I think that is a real concern we need to consider. I vote no. I ask you to vote no on transitional. Make it consistent with what's already there, at least R8. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Scott Wilson, and I live in Savon Heights. I live in the house I grew up in. I have seen changes in Cary. All my life, every day, there's something new and different. I do support change. I do not support this change. One thing that I wanted to bring up, this was my first exposure to these public meetings and the processes. When it first started, we had a nice picture from Habitat of the property and the lines and where things were going to be. At the first Bethel meeting, there was another picture. After that, I kind of stopped seeing pictures. Things kept changing. I didn't know where we were at. I guess we're down to 9. The lot is 2.58 acres. Are these 9 lots taking up all of that? I just want to make sure that there's no room left over for some kind of changes down the road. There are so many changes, I think it needs to stop. And I think as part of this new plan of Town of Cary, where we're trying to be able to look farther into the future than we have in the past, and hopefully avoid some of our infrastructure problems that we've created, traffic, storm runoff, I think we need a slower roll here and really just step back and take a look and make sure that this is going to be appropriate. And until things like the stormwater can be addressed, I think you have to vote no. Please leave this as R8. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is David. I'm a neighbor in Scottish Hills, and I ask the board to reject the zoning request.
Can I get your last name, please?
Forgin.
Thank you.
Despite Habitat's claim the proposed development doesn't fit in the community, the existing zoning in the neighborhood requires that there's a minimum of 12 feet between homes, giving the area an open and airy feel. That's one of my favorite aspects of the neighborhood. It doesn't look like modern developments. You don't see these homes crammed together where you could shake your neighbor's hand through the window. The 3-foot setbacks on the side yard that they're proposing, that I saw for the first time tonight, there's only 6 feet between adjacent homes if they build to the right up to the setbacks. The cookie cutter homes will look like factory or base housing and do not fit in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey there, good evening. My name is Scott Peters. Been in Scottish Hills for 13 years now and Cary for 18. I wasn't actually expecting myself to speak this evening. I was at this podium in February when we spoke to council and we had the public hearing. One of the things that rung out to me tonight when you were giving your instructions to us was, let's talk about what's new, what's changed, what's different about this. And I started thinking about it, and what we have over the last 2 months is a series of missed opportunities. I stood at this podium I was hopeful that we were moving in a direction that, as one of the council members said, we could have a win-win for all parties. We're moving in a direction of a number of homes that could be sustained, that could start to look at what the rest of the neighborhood looks like. I asked that the community stay involved in the planning, and because the plan changed down to 9 homes the day before that public hearing. Council asked that the community be involved in the planning of what this would look like. I showed up tonight, I was hoping to see a nice new graphic. This is how 9 homes fit. This is how they look. This is the aesthetics. Yeah, we didn't clear cut every tree because that's not what our neighborhood looks like. I was disappointed. It was a missed opportunity. I was just going back through my notes from that town council meeting. There was a lot of good discussion by council members afterward, talking about a win-win for everyone, wanting the applicant to showcase how this would look to the members of the neighborhood. One council member thanked us for filling the chambers. That only happened one other time. One member said, trying to force fit density that doesn't fit isn't the way to go. Harmony and blend is more important than the philosophy of how we want to develop Cary. One of the members said that the number one issue is compatibility. Doesn't want to drive into the neighborhood and say, hey, what the heck is that? One of the council members said, one of the goals of the Cary Community Plan is to protect existing neighborhoods. Further said, applicant needs to continue to stay in touch with the neighborhood. They want to see things more tangibly, and so do I. We don't have that. Missed opportunities. What do we have here that we didn't have 2 months ago? We've got nothing. We've got the same plan they presented that day, unfortunately. No conversations with those in the community. No willingness to show that our concerns for our community are valid, that are important. I wrote just a couple notes because I didn't want to be without anything, but I said, while Habitat is asking us to support their mission, we're asking that they value and respect the vision that we have for our own neighborhood. If they do value us as a community enough to add Habitat recipients to our neighborhood, then where's the detail that we all need to even make a determination of how this project may fit? There's been 2 months of missed opportunities to demonstrate a harmonious vision. Missed opportunities to prove that our vision for our neighborhood that's been evolving for 50 years. We wrote the book about infilling. We've been doing it for 50 years. Look at how it's changed and how lots have changed, and culmination in those last houses across the street. Show how it's important, respected, and fits with the project that's on the table. I haven't seen it. I don't think those are the questions that council was looking for this thing to move forward. We don't have it yet. I guess your determination is, do we go back? Do we find that consensus? Or have we shown an unwillingness to involve us in the process? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Ivers, James Christopher, Colonel, retired. I just want to make 3 points that for consideration. I'm a construction engineer. I've built aquariums for the state of North Carolina. I've built piers for the state of North Carolina, and I've built apartment buildings for the state of North Carolina. Maintain the character of the neighborhood has to be considered. This is not just about Trimble Avenue. This is my first experience to the democratic process. Usually I get orders or give orders. First time I've seen discussion. It's not about Trimble. As somebody mentioned, I've lived in Braemar for almost 30 years. I didn't know Scottish Hills had other places around it. I thought it was one big neighborhood. I didn't know that we had other little neighborhoods joint with ours. The thing about construction, and you'd like you consider, are the second and third order effects of construction that impact down the road. Everything looks nice when a house is completed, when a building is completed. But the second and third order effects, which are never discussed until it's too late, can actually impact the impression and the impact of any dwelling you build. as I say, I'd like to maintain the character of our neighborhoods, and I appreciate you for time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Maybe we're getting to the end. It's hard to go last and think of originality, huh? You know, before I talk about what I was going to talk, do you realize I was sitting up there thinking,
Excuse me, can we start with...
oh, I'm sorry. See, you get nervous and you forget to introduce yourself. I'm Sharon Tobias. I have lived in Scottish Hills for about 10 years. So I was thinking as I was sitting there looking at the development, because we all have issues about the density, and maybe it's what's on my mind, but do you realize houses 6 foot apart are only 3 lawnmower passes? It's just something to put in context. Anyhow, I've been to all the meetings, and my primary concern is what generates this. I totally agree with affordable housing, and maybe we contribute as a collective whole to the lack of affordable housing, because nobody's turning down offers for their houses, and nobody's turning down above what you're asking for your houses. And the gentleman realtor who just sold the house 2 doors down from me rings the bell and says, "Score, sold in a day, how about selling yours?" So, you know, it's hard to distinguish rezoning from affordable housing, given that's the purpose of this rezoning request and the purpose of the development. Because I reflected on that with town council, that, you know, yes, it's rezoning, but the nature of the problem is the density, which is being created by the purpose, which links to affordable housing. So you can't de-link the two. And so my puzzle has always been, since the first meeting, and we heard that it was land acquisition costs that prohibited a less dense development. And people have spoken very eloquently about the lack of transparency. And any progress we've made is because of, you know, they discovered the right-of-way issue. None of this was from the get-go. You don't want townhomes, we'll develop single-family and let's present you the plan. It's because obstacles were hit along the way. It wasn't because of what we asked for. And so I've always tried to put this puzzle together, because behind this is a business decision that's affecting a huge neighborhood. People are making choices. The seller is making a choice to sell land for what they choose to sell it. A buyer is making a choice to buy it for that price. And hence, we have land acquisition costs impacting rezoning and prompting a denser proposal to capture that land acquisition cost. And I think listening to the speakers from Habitat, some of my little puzzle and conundrum was solved a little, because something they said really piqued my interest, because they used the term "works for us as developers." And with that, I kind of went, aha, as I look at the financial situation. Habitat does a great job as affordable housing developers. But the fact that they describe themselves as a developer, this is a development. This is somebody whose business is to develop affordable housing. And they do it in a different way than most conventional developers do. And they also said home ownership is a #1 wealth building tool. Somebody already spoke to that they don't meet the same criteria that I can to sell my house. So I'm not going to belabor the point as far as the Cary Community Plan. Just based on the number of speakers, that plan is subject to interpretation. But one of the things I do want to speak to is the classification of our neighborhood as heritage neighborhood. And in the Cary Community Plan, it says replacement of use types in existence, or in the case of neighborhood contexts that are deemed as in decline and appropriate for more intensive development. Scottish Hills is not in decline. And also the the staff said our neighborhood was built in the 60s and 70s. Actually, to clarify that, the section in the mint green is actually called Scottish Hills North. It came after Scottish Hills. It was built in the 90s, I believe, and it's zoned R8. And the most recent development in that neighborhood is R8. And to say this is an appropriate density based on the development, the industrial development across the street, this is in the neighborhood. What's labeled as a vacant lot prior to this property is just the right-of-way. There's a house there. There's a house, the vacant lot, and then more houses. So to be consistent in the precedence that this is going to set under the Cary Community Plan is really important. That are we truly looking and capturing the neighborhood as it should be? So With my 18 seconds left, I'm not sure y'all are aware that this is on the Town of Cary website. And when we talk about transparency and good faith and due process, this is basically advertising the new development. And I'll be happy to pass it around, given I'm down to 1 second. So if you want a copy, I have copies.
Thank you.
I'm Horace Robertson. I live at 1120 Balmoral Drive. Have been there since 1971. My border of my lot to the north was a pasture fence when I moved there. Brook Green Drive dead-ended at Balmoral when I moved there. So I've seen lots of changes since I've been there. As you listen to the presentation from town staff tonight, you did not hear that there's being additional paving going on around the mosque. That was just completely left off of the discussion. That is going to bring water onto that area. Some of the people who have supported the lady who supported this said she supported it. She's at a higher elevation than this lot that we're talking about. The lady that said she had a water problem and she was going to dump water down there. I know where I live. I bought my house because the ad said it overlooked the neighborhood. I have more water now than I have ever had. It just continues to come there. Staff said that this property is 1 mile from Annie Jones Park. Perhaps as the crow flies, but if you can get there under 2 miles using your town streets, that will surprise me. I've walked it since 1971. I've driven it many, many times. The plan says there's going to be storage behind the homes. As one speaker said, we never saw a visual. Is that attached storage? Is that detached storage? We have no idea what is going into that area. You're looking at my arms, my reach as a basketball player. We labeled it as 6 feet. We know the fire we had in downtown Raleigh really made major problems, and we were able to save that. If we have only 6 feet between those homes, our fire department will have a problem if we have a major fire in that area, and I think that's one of the things that should be looked at as rezoning. Also, town staff said north of this property there would be a buffer. What you may not have clearly been able to make out is where that buffer is being talked about is in a drainage ditch. As the water comes down out of Savon Heights, that's a drainage ditch that takes that into a major area. My wife is a realtor. One of the homes she has for sale in Scottish Hills right now, every time it shows, comments from the people looking at it want to know, is this going away from R8 zoning for this area down near Trimble? So I think there is a major problem that we need to look at. I'm saying to you, please vote no, because I think you've heard the reasons why this does not fit the character of the neighborhood. I'm not against rezoning. When I've gone between neighbors as flies and horses and cows to where we are now, I was there, dead-end street until Scottish Hills North was developed. My property has been enhanced by what has happened. I don't want to see something detract from it. Thank you. Please vote no.
Hi, my name is Jim Davis. I live on Balmoral, some distance down from where Trimble runs into it. I've been watching these and attending each one of these meetings, and every time so far I've heard a new proposal, I've been left with the feeling that they're trying to shoehorn something that doesn't fit into this site. And I don't mean fit in terms of matching the neighborhood or anything like that. I mean fit in terms of the shape of the site. look at the pictures that they had up earlier, and you'll see that the proposed lots are 40 feet wide, 6 feet between buildings. The problem is the geometry of the site, the shape of the site. It's too deep and too squat to really support what they would like to build there. That's I think this reason why it looks like every proposal so far has seemed like it just doesn't quite fit with the site. The frontage available on the site is just too small. Okay, that being said, I must say that I support Habitat for Humanity. I've worked with Habitat for Humanity in the past, and would be quite happy to work for them here in Cary and Raleigh. One final thing I have to say, and that is the real problem I think that you need to consider is the problem of flooding and drainage. I think it's your duty to consider what this might have, effect that this will have on the houses and the buildings that are currently there. If it's built, they've taken quite a few trees out, which would take a lot of the water catch away from the site. Please make sure something, whatever you vote for, make sure something is done about looking into that flooding problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I understand we're going to go over here.
Good evening, and thank you for the process. Is this on? Okay.
Yes, you're good.
All right. My name is Cindy Emmons, and I'm at 227 Trimble, and I'm within the radius of the notifications. I come to you from the City of Buffalo, Department of Community Revitalization. I know something about affordable housing. I'd like to speak to the width of this TRCU zoning. These lots are 40 feet, and that includes 2 abreast parking spaces for a drive. The minimum width for 2 abreast parking spaces is 20 feet. But you can't open car doors in 20 feet, so they recommend a minimum of 24 feet. That leaves what for the house itself? 40 minus 24. It's not a practical arrangement. And these very narrow shotgun houses are not in character with our neighborhood. There is nowhere in Scottish Hills where you will find a shotgun house. So I ask you to take that into consideration. And I was a little disturbed that the meeting was scheduled for today because I realized that attendance numbers seems to be important. And this is the day after Easter, and it's during Easter break for the children. So there are a lot of families who would have liked to have been here, and they are vacationing, they're visiting relatives, or they're entertaining.
Come on now.
So this is, very disadvantaged for the community. And I hope you'll take that into consideration. But more than that TRCU zoning is absolutely inappropriate for the additional reason that there is no commercial, there's no industrial, there's no manufacturing within the perimeter of Scottish Hills. There may be a little bit on the main thoroughfares of Chatham, Old Apex, the bordering, which is normal, but there's nothing like that within the community of Scottish Hills. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paul Stackhouse. I live at 216 Trimble. I just want to, on one of the maps, my house was under all blue, so I'm rain or drainage is my main concern. I just would like you to look at the numbers and see. I'm trying to come together or trying to get this in my head, but 9 times 40 is 360 feet. From there, it looks like the property is about 400 feet long. In the original drawings that they showed us, the site plans, they showed drainage runoff area, the retaining pond. So we haven't seen any drawings or proposals how this would look. But it doesn't seem with 360 feet, 10 feet on either side, that's 380 feet of continuous. There does not seem to be any place for plan for runoff. I'm guessing it's 400 feet long, so that leaves 20 feet, and then that, to me, that doesn't seem like enough to retain the water. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'll wait for a second, because if you're going to be thinking about an hour from now, boy, I wish I would have gone down there and said something. Now's your time to think again and come on down.
Hi, my name is Reed Phillips. I live at 215 Trimble Avenue. My property is adjacent to the south. And I'm the person that was been referenced by Kevin that presented this 9-unit proposal. Of course, honestly, never envisioned this proposal, and I'm a little disappointed by that. If you look in the map in Medlin, you'll notice that there are 5 homes that are coming in from the back of the property, and there's 4 homes across the street on the other side of the property. And every proposal that they had presented up to this point, there was actually a drive in the middle of this property. So in the proposal that we put forward to them, we couldn't imagine this, or at least I couldn't, that we would match the lot widths in the back and the front, which actually left a pretty good size area on the, I guess, north side for retention pond, in which that would be able to serve as a way to manage this process, and maybe even you guys could deal with that land between that's unused to help with that retention as well. So we also submitted to that several pictures of homes in the area that were 1,200 square foot of size, and the diversity in Scottish Hills that represented homes of that size, and would encourage them to be able to present ideas about how to make this so when you drive in there, someone say, wow, this is a really cute community. I wonder what this is, and not, oh, this must be, you know, a low-cost housing area. So we felt like there was a way of doing that with lots that were maybe not as deep, but would be able to match the kind of the nature. So I'm a little disappointed in the structure of this, as well as the fact that you know, when we and the neighbors, we actually had 10 of our neighbors kind of at one time agreed. It dropped to about 6 in terms of having 9 homes and certain characteristics associated with those in that space that we thought would look pretty nice. Unfortunately, that's not what we get, and I'm disappointed in that. I appreciate the fact that they looked at the plan we gave, but I didn't provide drawings. So note to self, next time always provide drawings. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? All you got to do is stand up, raise your hand just to let me know to keep the seat warm. Going once, twice. All right, our public hearing is now closed. Before we bring up our staff and our applicant, I got a few things that have popped up here that you've been talking about, and I thought maybe I'd reassure you. The first one may be a source of anxiety as much as reassurance, and that is we're an advisory board. Whatever we recommend is non-binding to the council, and it has gone before where we've denied something and council's approved it, and vice versa. So don't be disappointed or don't be energized in either case that whichever way we go, the council is really the decision-making body, so your work's not over yet. There are a couple other things, though, that I think would be a little reassuring. The first one is some folks have mentioned about bending the rules because it's habitat. No, this is a straight-up rezoning. This could easily be another developer coming in. The fact that it's block grants and stuff may have something to do with the way council looks at it, but not us. We're looking at it as the use of the land and whether or not that's appropriate. So this is a pretty conventional case that's before us. Habitat versus another developer really isn't germane with us here. Another thing is some folks ask, well, what if this current applicant options the land, buys it, we approve the rezoning, and then they sell it to someone who puts in 23 homes. Those zoning conditions you see up on the slide stick to that property. And if someone else wants to change from that, and then they buy the property, it says right on the top, maximum 9 detached dwellings, and we stick that on as a zoning condition, they can't do anything but 9 detached, or they come to another rezoning process, and this all starts over again. So no one can come in and backdoor something else. That's what these zoning conditions are all about. They stick to the property forever until they're changed again. Let's see, one of the other things that I'd heard was, make it R8 instead of making it transitional. We can't do that. The application is to make it TRCU or not. And if we say not, then it sticks at R40. And there's some things you can build. You saw a slide before that says they can build certain things on R40 without having to go through a rezoning. Some other folks had mentioned the lack of having graphics and pictures. Honestly, even if they did bring a picture and show us, well, here's where the trees are going to go, here's where this is going to go, that's not a zoning condition and it's non-binding. So we kind of ignore the pretty pictures when they're put in front of us and look at the details that are here. So the fact that we don't have graphics to look at is not an encumbrance on us in any way. And then the last thing that I would mention to you is some folks had mentioned about, well, they started with 23 and then they went down because they kept saying, oh, we have to do this amount to break even. Frankly, we hear that all the time. There are many other developers have come in and said, this is the density we got to have. They go through the process and suddenly it's a little lesser density or it's a completely different design. It's part of the whole process. So I don't want to, attribute something to an applicant or not, but I wouldn't look at anything nefarious in that sort of deal. It is more run-of-the-mill than you would think. Those are the things that I thought I'd give you some reassurance about with the concerns you heard. One thing I will really, and I'm sure everyone in Hill will say the same thing, the flooding and the stormwater, whichever way we go, that issue doesn't go away. I mean, even if we say we approve this and council approves it, you still have a beef with the town on flooding and stormwater. And that we'll ask, I'm sure we're going to bring them up and ask to make sure that thing stays alive regardless. So, you got my assurance here that we're not doing anything to affect the progress there. Those are my reassurances that, yes.
I think another concern, which was fair, was the scheduling of this meeting. And some folks felt it might have been done in such a way to reduce the potential participation tonight. Our meetings are set up a year in advance. We are every third Monday, like clockwork. That's how our meetings work. So tonight's meeting was set and approved by council back before the end of last year. So our meetings, just like town council, they run like clockwork. The train leaves the station at a certain time. We did not set this meeting based on any other point of view. Tonight's the night for April.
Good point. So we'll bring up Ms. Dry now and start with any questions we have of the applicant. I've talked long enough, so I'll start on the left-hand side here. And Carla, do you have any questions for anyone?
Well, the speakers really were very thorough. So I guess my only question is, did you hear something during the public hearing that maybe something different, other than the things that Mark just mentioned? I can't think of anything specific, but, I feel like we got a lot of information. I know a lot more about this than I did before I read the staff reports. When I read the staff report. So is there anything you want to caution us about it, I guess is the only question.
I can't say off the top of my head that I learned something.
Great.
Thank you.
Victor, how about you?
Could I wait a little bit?
Absolutely. Anyone else on the side? Ryan, you want
Yeah, sure. I have
jump
a
in there?
couple for you, Ms. Dry. So my first question is in regards to the sidewalk on Trimble Avenue. I just want to clarify, is the applicant required to extend that sidewalk south in the full frontage of this development?
Sidewalk requirements are based on the road status. And Trimble Avenue is designated with the town's plan as a local road. So I'm just going to turn to our Transportation and Facilities Department to see if you know off the top of your head if a sidewalk would be required for a local road. Yes, I'll pull that up.
Yes, today there is a sidewalk on the east side of Trimble Avenue. They would be required to install a sidewalk along their entire frontage.
Okay. Thank you. I have one more question. So, and this was alluded to a bit in the during our public hearing. Our new comprehensive plan encourages affordable housing. I'm just wondering what officially would our comprehensive plan define as affordable housing? Like just to put some context around what is affordable housing.
I don't know that question off the top of my head. I'm going to see if someone from our long-range staff can help address that question.
Sure.
I do know with this particular rezoning case, none of the conditions that were proposed have to deal with affordability. So that's not actually an aspect that we are reviewing in association with this particular rezoning case. And I'll turn to Mr. Smith to further define affordability.
Great.
Hi. It was mentioned during some of the comments. Affordable housing is defined as having spent no more than 30% of your income for your housing costs, which includes utilities, mortgage, P&I, taxes, insurance, and utilities.
Okay.
And it's based on, generally we refer to affordable housing as for people who earn 80% of the area median income as well. And the median income for Wake County is around $75,000. So 80% of that times 30% of your cost would be what an affordable housing would be.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate putting some context around that. That's all I got.
That's it?
Yeah.
Wow, we're moving faster than I thought.
I would rather defer your others.
There were some references made to some studies or whatever with regard to stormwater. And I wondered if somebody could give us some sort of status report on what's being done in the stormwater area.
Sure.
There were a couple of studies mentioned. One was the TCAP flood study, which was done back in 2006 by DuBarry and Davis, which was inside the Maynard Loop, a study of culvert crossings and flooding in the area. So that was one. And then also we got a petition recently in this area for us to look at drainage in the Trimble area. And so we are currently looking at that.
I'm sure we'll be bringing you back up.
Might as well stay.
Got anything else, Chuck?
I just have to ask, TCAP, does that mean small culvert? What is TCAP?
Town Center Area Plan.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else, or?
Well, I mean, with regard to that, a study was done, but I mean, the question is, what were the results with regard to this neighborhood and this specific problem?
This was not part of the TCAP flood study. So it's outside of
So this
that
area has not been studied?
This area has not. Inside the TCAP has been studied. And that was what was mentioned by one of the people that spoke. And that had to do with the drainage area just to the east of this drainage area. This area has not been looked at other than the one piece of property that flooded.
And your current study today is looking at that entire area or just one?
Right now,
just the
we're
people
still
who
in the
have-
process of reviewing all the petitioners. And so it's very, very preliminary. We're just looking at what their concerns are. There has been no study as of now. It's just a preliminary look into the drainage issues that are along this drainage way.
And typically, does the town do they fix drainage issues when they find them? I mean, if we were to go back and you were to discover in a year or however long this takes that there is a real problem, and maybe those are local roads, maybe they're Cary roads, whatever, would Cary step up and fix those, or is that something they would try to get done during development? How does that work?
Well, the drainage area to this site is about 90 acres, and this is a 2.5 acre part of that. So I don't think that what they would do would take care of the 90 acres. But the town has several different policies that they have in place when it comes to storm drainage. And one of the policies is, and the town, any town homeowner, property owner, can petition us to look at storm drainage issues on their property. There are caveats associated with that. They have to qualify. And the biggest qualifier for a property owner to be able to petition the town is it has to be structural flooding. In other words, the actual dwelling has to have water get into the house. That is one. The other is a different policy that looks at roadways and culvert crossings and determine whether there is an issue with a house upstream, because most of the time, as water comes down to the crossing and it backs up, and when it backs up, sometimes a house will be impacted by that. So we look at those areas as well. But then, so we'll do culvert improvements, and there may be some other issues associated with it. Typically, though, the town does not work on private property. It has to be in the public interest for us to deal with it.
We'll just, if anyone else has any questions of you, since we're kind of on the stormwater thing.
Oh, yeah. And I promise that we will get back to the zoning, to the rezoning. But on the stormwater, because I've read the Dewberry report, can you help me understand in the TCAPs, where in Scottish Hills did that study end? As we look geographically, did it include Brook Green? Did it include Balmoral, Medlin? I mean, it did include Trimble, but I'm curious as to what that study actually did look at.
Okay. I've only got a piece of it right here. I wasn't prepared to talk about the whole thing, but you can. This is Maynard, and Maynard Loop makes a big loop. They're right out of town center. Everything drains radially, and so this is the Swift Creek. This is Swift Creek. It comes right from the Art Center right on down into Kildare Farm Lake. So this was studied. Then to the north, Crabtree Creek and Coles Branch go out northwest, and that particular basin was studied. Okay. And then also Walnut Creek goes east, and Walnut Creek was studied as well. So the TCAP study included everything inside the Maynard Loop that was a part of Swift Creek Basin, the Walnut Creek Basin, and the Coles Branch Basin.
Okay, so the TCAP study didn't necessarily look at every street and every culvert. It was really more defined by the
stream, exactly.
By the streams, okay.
There were some other areas that were looked at. There were quite a few things that were identified. At the time of the study, there was about $10 million worth of improvements.
Mhm.
The town's done about $6 million worth.
In Scottish Hills, or at least in the Scottish Hills North, and also including the parts Brook Green, Balmoral, et cetera, those are all town roads, right? None of those are state roads. All that would be all those connectors, et cetera, neighborhood roads.
That is correct.
Those are all town roads.
Yes.
And the developer is long gone, so this is really a town issue. Because I heard what you said, Billy, about that there's individual properties and then there's drainage and potential impediments from the drainage in terms of culverts, underways. And I know that there's been work done in some parts of Scottish Hills where there was inadequacy and the town did come back and through. So it is an issue. It's not germane necessarily to this, but I do want to make sure folks hear, and I know that the council asked for staff to come back and looking at this as whether this rezoning and the applicant's development there, what impact they'll have. If maybe you could speak to when they come in with a site plan, or if this rezoning is successful and is approved by council, and there's a site plan that is submitted that will be reviewed, what is it the staff's going to be looking for, just kind of from a 30,000-foot level, as they're looking at that, and particularly in light of the known that there is an issue there. I appreciate it's a large acreage, and folks know that we have Phillips Apartments that's running into that area. I don't know what they got away with BMPs, but it's a waterfall coming down Chatham Street, et cetera, et cetera. So not putting the burden on this applicant, but understanding what it is that they'd be looking at, particularly with the fact that sidewalks, and I'm just trying to think about what drainage there'll be. I mean, sidewalks and driveways, what stormwater management will be coming down that slope before it hits the street, and what it is you'd be looking for.
Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you, as you can see here flashing on the screen is the area. The area that drains to where this area is I just circled in red there. So that's a drainage area to it. And the water patterns basically go as shown by those blue arrows there. They all flow to the town-owned right-of-way, it's not right-of-way, but fee simple, and go underneath Trimble in a 15-inch pipe. So what we would look at for them to put a stormwater control measure right about where that star is, we're guessing, and they would detain that, and then they would have to look at pre-development and post-development of that parcel, and they would have to match the 1 year, the 2 year, the 5 year, and the 10-year storm events.
Okay.
And then also, as a side note, we will have them look at the 100-year event and make sure that the road's not overtopping during that event.
So the stormwater management system that they'll put in will be to act as a collector to mitigate any potential flooding. In other words, so that it would mitigate the effect if there was no development there in terms of the storm flow into that basin area behind the four houses in Medlin there. I mean on Trimble. Okay. So one other question on the stormwater as it gets back to the applicant. We know that sidewalks are going to be a requirement, but they're not necessarily going to have to do curb and gutter in that development and given the street. What I'm thinking about is this, there won't be stormwater. I mean, will they be, what's the likelihood they're going to put like stormwater catchment system under the street?
They're going to have to do it down the frontage.
On the frontage. So they will be putting a stormwater, which will then, I guess, carry, because I don't have the VIP system up in front of me right now, but I had looked at the stormwater management system. And so that then, the stormwater catchment system at the curb would then be taking it north Is that what the intent would be?
That's correct.
Okay, and connecting all into there, okay. So water coming down that slope, as you showed, is going to be caught at the curb and coming down the sidewalks, coming down the driveways that a couple of the of our local citizens talked about, and catching it there, and then, okay, managing it that way.
That would be the intent. Now, the applicant may have a different approach to it, but the fact is, that's really the only place that it will collect. I mean, they could try something else, but based on staff looking at it, it appears that they will have to put, that's where it all collects and goes under the road, because the main drainage way is on the backside of the lots that are on the west side of Trimble. So they have to get it to the backside of the lots on west side of Trimble some way, and that's really the only practical way to do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. I don't have any other questions on stormwater.
If there's no other stormwater questions, I just have one. We saw some other uses that are currently allowable under R40 without rezoning. I remember a daycare caught my eye. Now, I know we need special use permits and like, we've had this question come up with traffic, but I don't think ever with stormwater. Are there other uses that would generate more of a runoff issue than just residential with driveways and rooftops?
Yes, there are. I mean, pretty much runoff is based off of impervious surface. So, it's all according to how much impervious surface you have. Potentially a daycare center would have a big parking lot and a big building footprint. So but the bottom line is we require them to capture the additional runoff and detain it.
Okay. Thank you for telling me that. Any other questions for our stormwater expert? Thank you for being with us. You still? You're still there, man.
I might be here, yes. All right. To get back to some zoning questions, and we'll get to land versus raindrops. Katie, Mr. I, I've driven by the site numerous times, and so I was trying to picture where the 30-foot buffer was. And do you have any, or maybe some of the other staff can give me an estimate, from the edge of the asphalt and the existing road, how far is the town's easement, if you will? And I guess I'm trying to think, where's the beginning of the 30-foot buffer, is what I'm trying to estimate. In other words, I'm trying to look at how far back from the existing road, trying to get in my mind's eye, and also what that may look like.
Yeah, certainly. So this yellow line indicates where the property line is, and the town's property that we originally thought was right-of-way is just to the north of that. It's a rectangular piece. So the buffer would start at where the property line is and would go inward into the site. So they would be required to have a 30-foot buffer starting at this property line going south, 30-foot buffer here moving west, and then a 30-foot buffer moving north along the southern property.
Okay. And as I look at that yellow line, I'm glad I have my reading glasses on. It looks like if I was to be on the road frontage, it looks like their property line goes up to about where the existing sidewalk kind of stubs into that property. And so that would be an approximation about where their property line. So if you were to imaginarily, if your imagination continue that sidewalk all the way down, that 30-foot buffer would approximately start about there and go backwards. Would that be a approximation?
Yeah, approximately.
Yeah. All right. And in the zone, we heard a lot about discussion about R8 tonight, and about this property. There was an acceptance of perhaps if it was R8. With R8 zoning in the 2.58 acres, how many lots would that be?
So I can't answer right off the top of my head, but with R8, they would be. Let me pull up the slide that has the minimum lot dimensions, and we can use that as an example. So they would have to meet all of the minimum lot dimensions that you see here, Plus, they would have to also subtract out the land for putting their stormwater management device. So once you take away that, you look at what's left, and based on the minimum lot size requirements, minimum lot width requirements, you can then calculate how many lots you could get from that.
Okay, so it's not an easy math. I was looking at, the handy chart that said a maximum gross density of about 5.4 lots per acre. But understanding some of the other caveats that depending on all things being, it could be somewhere between approximately 10 and as many as 13 lots if it was R8. They're on 2.58 acres.
Right, but then looking at the dimensional standards may limit that further.
Okay, all right. That's all. I'll let somebody else ask questions. I'm sorry.
No, I'm actually, I think we've had more information on this case than probably anything we've had in a long time, and it's good information, and not just from, this meeting to the prior meetings, what the staff has presented, what these folks have talked about. So, and then just based on the questions, I feel that we've got a thorough vetting that's taken place here. So I'm good for right now.
Okay, I'll go back to the deferrals then.
My point of view is this is a pretty straightforward. Flooding issues aside, I've had a chance to drive through this neighborhood. Its charm is its heterogeneity. There's a lot of variety in the homes, and there's been plenty of discussion about the nature of the neighborhood and so forth. The 9 home sites within that piece of property and the discussion about the narrow width and so forth would be very inconsistent with this neighborhood. So I don't have a question. I just have an observation.
Fair enough. Right, Jeff?
I'm still new to this process, so I may not understand the parts of it that are still under discussion, but the stormwater thing just is it leaves me kind of aghast. There's a lot of people whose homes are affected, and they obviously feel very passionately about the potential impact that this new development might have. And I guess I was really surprised to hear that the town doesn't work on.
Use the microphone.
Sorry about that. I was just surprised that the town does not work on private property, that it doesn't have a responsibility, evidently, for private property, which is good information to understand, and also that they had never done any kind of a survey that impacts this overall area that has been there for a long time. So I don't know where that fits into this whole understanding about what decision to make. It seems that has a huge bearing on whether or not this is something that would be appropriate in this part of the town. Diversity aside.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
I wanted a clarification. A question came up about whether the storage was attached or detached. I thought I recalled that it was attached. Do you recall? Could you clarify?
Yes. The applicant has proposed that the storage be attached to the principal structure, and that it be located in the rear of the yard, so behind the principal structure, but attached to it.
Oh, go ahead. Sure.
No, I just want to clarify that since a question had come up.
I have a question for the applicant, if anyone else does as well. And I don't know if he's around anymore, but it involves the zoning condition of lots fronting Trimble Avenue. Typically, when you see the process go through several iterations and you see more zoning conditions attached to properties, they are somewhat concessions to the other folks in the neighborhood or what have you. It had been stated earlier that that putting all the lots on Trimble Avenue is not something that the neighborhood would have been looking for. So I'm trying to get at what the rationale behind that as a concession or a condition would be.
I think the reason we put that in there was to let the people know that
where the houses would be fronting and where they would be located. And it also means that there would not be another public street constructed that might have houses fronting this way.
Okay.
And because we felt it was wise to use the existing infrastructure for the new lots.
So that's more to lock down what the geometry would be like.
That's
okay.
exactly right.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any other questions of the applicant or of the staff or of each other? Well, if not, then it's probably time to put something out on the floor and beat it up a little bit.
I'm always willing to throw something out. All right, so let's see how this flies. I move that the board forward case number 16 REZ 24 to Town Council with a recommendation for denial, as it is not consistent with the comprehensive plan and all other applicable plans, and denial is reasonable and in the public interest for the reasons set forth in the staff report and presentation.
Do we have a second for the motion to deny?
Second.
Would you lead off our discussion on that motion?
You know, when I read the staff report, you know, and I looked at the concessions and, you know, I just read the words, it seemed reasonable. You know, honestly, I left the house, I've been on vacation, so I didn't look till today. But, you know, it all sounded good on paper, but I've got, you know, 14 years of experience doing this, and I know that what looks good on paper doesn't always work. So I rode over there today, and I pulled into the lot, and I sat there, and I looked around, and I looked at these. It was a beautiful neighborhood, and, you know, I really liked it. I saw all the different houses, and I saw the people going about their business. And I looked at the proposal, and I specifically had out the sheet that showed the setbacks and the distance between the houses. And it just didn't feel right. And normally, you know, in years past, I would have come up with much more mathematical, logical, you know, type of reason for not going for this. But, you know, our Cary plan is about context. It's about what fits. It's about protecting, you know, what's there. You know, we could talk about 9 houses or 8 houses, you know, in the context of the greater heritage neighborhood piece, that's not really going to make a difference. And we've heard that there are affordable options, and I don't really even want to put the affordable piece into it. What bothered me was the look of it. The 6 feet between houses, you know, it was so inconsistent with what I was seeing out there. The sameness, the fronting right up against the road. Just, you know, all of that. And I assumed it went against that road because there was no other road to go against, right? So I took that into account. So, you know, I hate to be a little bit hazy about it. And we had some very persuasive arguments. I didn't really factor in the flooding issue, and even though I totally get it, been there doing that, simply because I knew that wouldn't be something that we could really impact here on a rezoning issue. But I'm glad that it came to the front, that we talked about it. I hope they get the help that they need, because I feel like the town needs to step up. Just a volunteer's personal opinion. That's pretty much it. I feel like there are other options for this lot that maybe could still be affordable, but as they point out, could fit into the neighborhood.
Okay, Steve?
I'll echo some of those same points. First of all, you know, I met with the Habitat people. These are good people. They have, you know, great ideas. They're an asset to this area. But we've also listened to the town. We've listened to the staff. And for me also, the flooding really isn't the driving point for me at all. I mean, it's a bad problem, but I don't get into it with what we're talking about here today. My bigger concerns are, this is a vibrant neighborhood. When I drove through the neighborhood, I was trying to envision it. I didn't see it as a seamless transition. I saw it as a radical transition into the neighborhood. And I was also looking for some sort of harmony, and I just never could reach the point where I saw that harmony. The density is a really a big jump, from what's there for what's being proposed. And then lastly, if you just look at the community plan, one of the biggest things I got out of it for this type of neighborhood is protection. And I just don't see the protection for the neighborhood. So those are my reasons that I would have to vote no on this.
Okay. I'm going to go around and make sure everyone has a chance to be heard. But before I do that, for those of you who are up there keeping score, if the numbers go one way or the other, let's not have another episode. Just a bunch of hushed murmuring would go really well. Victor?
I have driven up and down the streets of this neighborhood so many times. I'm surprised Cary Police hasn't been called out, thinking I'm stalking or doing something nefarious. When I first read about this whole plan, I thought this was just great. Redevelopment, infill, potentially a nice neighborhood. I think the world of Habitat for Humanity. I thought this would just be icing on the cake to develop with their involvement. But as I looked at the neighborhood over and over and over, I said, this just does not fit. And we can discuss flooding until all night long if we want to. The plan is proposed, and that's really all I'm going to confine my decision to. The plan is proposed by gosh knows who, it doesn't matter, doesn't fit the neighborhood. And that's kind of where I come out. It doesn't make sense.
Thank you.
I want to start off by just thanking all the speakers at our public hearing. I think it's very encouraging to see so many neighbors and a community kind of come out here and stand behind each other and really speak their minds and take the process seriously. I think that says a lot. Just to be clear on my evaluation, this is a rezoning request regardless of who the applicant is. As was mentioned before, Habitat could easily pull out, another developer could come in. So Habitat aside, which is obviously a great organization, I kind of look at it, without that consideration. There are a couple of things that I actually do like about this. I like the fact that we are talking about detached residential. I know when this originally came in, looking at the townhouses kind of made me cringe, thinking that was going to go in. So I think that we are moving in the right direction. I also like that there are a lot of zoning conditions that really limit or kind of depict what the applicant envisions. I like seeing exactly what's going in, and I like that they go to the extent of adding those conditions in. I definitely think there's still work to be done. I don't think we're there yet. And what really I'm held up on is the transitional residential conditional use. As mentioned before, I don't think that fits. I don't think 6 feet between houses, lots that are 40 feet wide, it's not going to fit. It's not going to be consistent with what's there now. And for that reason, I am, going to support the denial.
I agree with everything I've heard so far. It is, as Ryan said, it is rewarding to hear neighbors who are obviously galvanized about an issue and want to protect their neighborhood and think very highly of where they live, and they want to continue that lifestyle. I think that's always good to have that kind of involvement, but at the same time, and hopefully it's not against anything, it's with the idea of it eventually being for something, since there is a piece of property there that's going unspoken for and could potentially be put to a solid use within the town of Cary. But I agree with Carla, it's just it's a difficult fit in this particular case, and people need to have a sense that the continuity of their neighborhood is going to be protected at some level, even though new development has to come in, and we know we're going to see more of it. But it's kind of a wedge here in this case, it seems to me.
Keep going right down the hall.
Okay. I'm very conflicted about this. I don't have a problem with zero lot line houses or houses that are built close together. We've got neighborhoods throughout Cary where you have zero lot line houses and then single family nearby. I don't have a problem with that as far as how it impacts the general character of a neighborhood. But I do have a problem with the way these houses are just stacked in a row, facing houses across the street that are on larger lots. the layout just doesn't seem quite right to fit into the neighborhood. And one of the speakers talked about how they had thought that it would be a good idea to have a street going in, do some sort of cul-de-sac arrangement, and maybe do some zero lot line houses, and that might work. I don't know. But the way they're just lined up in a row right across the street from much larger lots just doesn't seem to work.
Well, like Chuck, I too am conflicted in this case because there's a lot of different parts and pieces. It's also one of the first cases we've dealt with since the new community plan has come out, and we're all trying to find our legs on what some of the words mean. I remember being here a few months back and asking one of the members of staff about the same question on affordable housing, and we have policy statements, but not necessarily, doesn't necessarily equal policy. So conflict on that, and I didn't mean to chase down the stormwater issue. It's a very real issue in this neighborhood. It's a serious issue, as is, I think, in other heritage neighborhoods, but I just wanted to try to highlight what, how much of an impact or how it would be addressed as we looked at this individual site. And that's what I want to look at is, you know, I guess perception is reality, and so I may be counter to many of the speakers tonight. My perception is that Habitat was listening. That Habitat understood that 23 units was not going to make it. They heard 15. They got clarification on the connector road, which was a major issue for many folks. That got resolved, so there will no longer be a connector road. And then they went down to what folks asked for, which was single-family detached, something that was more like R8. And so with 9 lots, that would be about the same density. But I understand, you know, the issue of the way they're laid out may leave something to be considered. But I may be the sole dissenter on this board, but I'm going to vote for this rezoning for TR for the 9 lots, and knowing that it'd only be a recommendation to council, and that council would be making the ultimate decision. But that's where I'm at.
Well, y'all know where this is headed. I guess the safe thing for me to do would be to chime in with the majority, so, you know, it's the safe play. But I got to tell you, there's just one question that I'm asked: is this combination of conditions on a transitional residential a good use for this property? Not, is this so much better than what was originally proposed? Because that's nowhere in here does it say, oh, we wanted 23, then we want 15, and now it's 9. Isn't that great? No, it's we want 9. Is 9 a good use? That's that plain thing. Like Carla mentioned, she was gone for a while. Well, I have to look at it like I was gone for a while and not worry about what happened before. I've attended all the meetings, all the neighborhood meetings. I was at the church and everything else. And I want to commend everybody who came to speak here because, you know, for those of you who did go to the meetings, there was some venting. And for all your presentations to be on point, talking about what this case was all about, that was really great. That makes our lives a lot easier. And you really acquitted yourselves well, making a very good point. And tying it into the community plan was invaluable because, like Dan said, we're figuring the community plan out as we go along on how we're going to deal with it. And that's the only thing that stops me from voting for it. Because we're going to get another 100,000 people in this town in about the next 10 to 15 years. And we got to put them somewhere. And as you heard, there's only 18% of our town left to put stuff in. And if everyone says, oh, no, I want the same size house in that lot that I have here, we're in big trouble. And that's why we do all these plans. But that's really a case for a 20-acre lot or a little bit bigger, 10-acre, 8-acre. This is a small little sliver, and we're talking about the difference of 6 homes versus 3 homes, and we're transitioning, but I don't see what we're transitioning to. It's all residential all around it. Yeah, I'm always going to be on the side of we got to get more density because there's more people coming every time we're rated one of the best places to live in the country. That's just a fact of life, but not everywhere. I can't force myself to like this enough But yet on my principles, I'm happy it's going to go down in defeat. But Dan, I'm with you, and I'm just going to vote for it. But I've got no problem with the fact that the denial is most likely going to go. So all right, let's do it formally here and put this to rest. All in favor of denying the motion for the rezoning, please say aye.
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 All those opposed, say no. No. Oh, we have 3. Caught me by surprise.
JoJo's conflict.
The motion does, the denial is approved, so the motion, the rezoning fails, and we will go to council with a recommendation for denial. Can't hold you back the whole time.
Yeah, now you can.
And we're going to take a brief recess anyway, so you can hoot and holler all you want the minute we hit this gavel for the next 5 minutes. All right, we're back from recess now, and to an empty room, I might add. And we have one more case to go that has no public hearing, and it's case 17 REZ02. Ms. Dry is back with us for the Wakena Road.
For your consideration is a request to rezone 2.55 acres at 1620 Wakena Road. The site is highlighted here in yellow. Wakena Road is access off Indian Wells Road, which is west of NC Highway 55. Although the site has a Wakena Road address, it's not actually doesn't actually have frontage on Wakena Road. You can see from this vicinity map that the property is south of properties that are actually accessed off of Wakena Road. The site is currently vacant, and as you can see from this aerial image, it is mostly wooded. The Sedgefield subdivision is located over here to the east. You can see construction from the Friars Gate subdivision to the west and Morrisville Parkway to the south. This map indicates the current zonings for the existing lots in the area. The current zoning for the subject property is R40, indicated here in brown. You can see the lots to the north are zoned R8 conditional use. The properties to the east and to the south are zoned Planned Development District, or PDD. The applicant's requesting to rezone the property to Residential 8 conditional use. This zoning would allow the land use to stay as residential, but would increase the density to a minimum lot size of 8,000 square feet. The applicant is proposing zoning conditions. These include limiting the land use to detached dwellings and neighborhood recreation, and limiting the density to a maximum of 3 dwellings per acre. This site is an area that has seen many development requests over the past few years. This map highlights some of the recent development activity. Each project is highlighted on this map with a unique color. The subject site is located to the south, again, of Wakena Road. It's this property with a black outline here. The lots to the north in green were recently rezoned and are actually in development plan review right now with the town. The project is called the Wellfield subdivision. The properties to the northwest also were recently rezoned and are in current plan review with the town called the Reserve at Wakena. So as I noted, this site doesn't actually have access on Wakena Road. This is a picture of the draft plan for the Wellfield subdivision, which is to the north, showing how this site may take access to a new road that would be built along the front of the property and eventually out to Wakena Road. I should note that this plan is still a draft plan. It's still in review. It's not approved at this time, so the ultimate layout may look somewhat different depending on how it may change through the process. According to the Town of Cary GIS maps, the site is impacted by stream buffers to the south. Evaluation of this would be determined at the time of development plan review. The Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Facilities Master Plan, which is identified as in the Engage chapter of the Cary Community Plan, proposes no new public parkland or public greenways on the subject property. The property is located within 400 feet of the Morrisville Parkway Street Side Trail and the Green Hope School Greenway. According to the Move chapter of the Cary Community Plan, Wakena Road is a collector. NC Highway 55 and Morrisville Parkway are both thoroughfares. Staff has evaluated this rezoning with respect to various aspects of the Cary Community Plan. The aspects for evaluation include a review of the plan policies, guidance for infill compatibility, the site's designation with the Future Growth Framework designation. An evaluation of the plan has been conducted, and this included first reviewing all of the town's policies and selecting the policies that were applicable to the site. A full list of the policies and those that were selected for applicability are included in the body of your staff report. Some of the policies that were found to be applicable include policies that deal with housing and density. And the type of housing that's proposed is detached dwellings, and the density is 3 dwelling units per acre maximum, which is similar to other neighborhood developments in the area. Further, the site is an infill site, meaning that it is currently vacant, and if the rezoning is approved, it would allow the site to be developed in a similar nature to surrounding properties. On the Future Growth Framework Map, which is a policy found in the Shape chapter of the Cary Community Plan, the site is depicted as or designated as a mixed neighborhood, and this is shown in the dark pink on this slide here north of Morrisville Parkway. This neighborhood contains a substantial variety of housing types, unit sizes, lot sizes, and densities. Predominant use types for this category include single-family detached, large and small lot, single-family attached, and multifamily housing. Residential 8 zoning is an appropriate district within the mixed neighborhood development category. Further, an example of a neighborhood within the mixed neighborhood development category is the Amberley neighborhood, which is a master plan development including a variety of housing types, lot sizes, densities, all within discrete pods. So to summarize the analysis of the Cary Community Plan, the policies of the plan are supportive of this rezoning request. Staff also found that the rezoning supports the town's goals regarding appropriate transitions, providing more housing choices, and infill. There was a neighborhood meeting, which is required by the town, held here at the town hall on February 1st. There were no attendees at the meeting. Staff did not receive any feedback, either positive or negative, from nearby property owners prior to the public hearing. At the public hearing, there were no speakers other than the applicant, and there were no questions or comments from council. However, following the public hearing, staff did receive an email with concerns from a nearby property owner regarding the potential of a road connection to the adjacent neighborhood. So with that, staff does have a preliminary recommendation for this rezoning request. Staff is recommending approval, being that the rezoning is found to be consistent with the Cary Community Plan policies. And its appropriate use in the mixed neighborhood, and the proposed use is suitable for this infill site. A separate recommendation, of course, will be produced by the Planning and Zoning Board. Both the staff and the P&Z Board recommendations will be sent to the Town Council for final action. So this concludes the staff's presentation. The applicant is here to share comments on the rezoning request. Following that, staff will be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm J.W. Sharon with JS Development Company. We are the proposed developers of this property here before you tonight, but what I'd like to do is take a step back to understand how this piece fits in with the whole. If you look directly north of this piece of property, you see the first 3 hatched green pieces next to Sedgefield subdivision. Those property owners came in individually about 2 years ago and asked for a rezoning, owner-initiated rezoning, not by any developer, and for R8. I was involved with the other Joaquin as a planning consultant for all the other properties along Joaquina Road that you see with the R8 symbol there. They're in the shaded green. One of the things there with that rezoning, we had conditions of limitations on the one I was consultant with. And in addition to that, if you look the very far end of your map here, where you see the shaded green piece that was included, that next dark brown piece, that piece there was also bought by the developer for that project, and it has been dedicated to the town in order that the Highcroft Drive collector can be built through. It was part of that requirement to help. I noticed a comment here about traffic or a connection. So as Friar Track is being built through, that connection is being made for alternate access points out. But moving back over to where I was with the 3 green pieces, the owners there
have decided to work with JS Development Company to develop this for 26 lots with an average lot size of 11,000 square feet. In doing that project, we realized that there was a piece of property here left over, not in floodplain, but it was a residual leftover from Highcroft Preserve and Sedgefield that was done by Preston Development. They could not connect that piece environmentally. If you notice, there was a stream crossing involved there. They did not want to impact that. So now that we are here with Wellfield to the north, we're contiguous. We're looking to add this 2.5 acres to round out what I see as a pothole in the middle there for a density that would allow maximum up to really 7 units to be added of similar density, and that would complete this area that you see there in whole. We do feel it, as mentioned, it is consistent with the land use plan, and we would thank you for your support.
Thanks a lot. Any questions for the staff or for the applicant on this case?
Actually, I have a question. Mr. I. So in the staff report, you included a figure that showed to the south of the property that there's a I think it's natural state preservation easement. It was hard to tell in that drawing if that actually spilled onto the site. Does that just follow the stream buffer, or is any of that located on the site?
I'm just going to pull up a slide to see if I could illustrate. Oh, no, hold on.
It won't go away.
Yeah, sure.
Flashback.
Don't tell the people outside.
From what I understand, the plat that recorded the natural state preservation easement was specific to the property to the south of this, and it was recorded on a plat. However, if you look at the stream buffers, it looks like some of the stream buffers along the bottom portion of this property may somewhat impact the lower southern portion of the property, but the natural state preservation easement is within that property to the south. It doesn't impact this.
Okay, so that's specific to the property?
Yes.
To the south. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? How about a motion then?
I'll make a motion.
Two for two.
I just automatically look to my left when I guess.
Ready to go home. I move that the board forward case number 17 REZ02 to Town Council with a recommendation for approval as it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and all other applicable plans and is reasonable and in the public interest for the reasons set forth in the staff report and presentation.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion on that, Carla?
No, I mean, we've seen this area kind of develop over time or rezone over time. I don't know how much development has actually happened, but it seems perfectly reasonable that they would encompass that small piece.
Yeah, I'm glad they're coming back and incorporating the leftovers.
Anyone else? Yeah, exactly. For those of us who've been on this a while, for the larger, more holistic developments to bring those small straggling pieces in is really good news for us. Would all those in favor of approving this rezoning then say aye? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no? That motion carries unanimously. And for our one person in the audience, you get the high point of the entire meeting. Because we're now going to pick the next vice chair of the
Stayed just for that.
P&Z.
He's making a run for it.
And I need to ask you, people can self-nominate, correct? They don't have to be nominated by someone else. So we'll open the floor right now for any nominations, and you can nominate yourself for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Ryan Eads.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Any other nominations? All right, we'll close the nominations. Then all those in favor of Ryan becoming our next vice chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nope.
Congratulations, Ryan.
Thanks. Yeah.
You get to sit next to
Get a raise.
And we'll be, from what I understand, we'll be 8 for a little while. It's not really a big issue, though, because we're just advisory. So, 4-4 votes don't really create that much of a problem. But congratulations, Ryan. And anyone else with any other issues before we call for an adjournment? then would someone mercifully do so?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org. The following is a production of Cary TV, the Town of Cary's government access channel.